Good morning, students. So let's continue with the analysis tool. In the last lecture, we have done one of the analysis tool, that is data flow diagram, which was further converted into corresponding structured chart. Now we will be doing another three tools, that is data dictionary, decision tree and decision table, right? So what is a data dictionary? Data dictionary is a metadata or a repository where the entire information relevant to a particular data flow diagram is being captured. We know that we make a number of data flow diagrams in levels, but for a complete system, one data dictionary is prepared which captures the information from all the relevant data flow diagrams of that particular system. Okay, so it is being said here, every DFD model of a system must be accompanied by a data dictionary. Now, what does this data dictionary consist of? Actually, what information does it captures? It captures, what does it includes here is list of all data items, whatever is used in your data flow diagram. What do you mean by a data item? The name of the process, the name of the data flow, the name of the data store, everything, which all data you have used, the naming nomenclature that you have used, right? It is going to capture all those, right? Apart from the list of all these data items, it also tells, right, you can say what is the type of these data items, whether it is a process or it is an integer or it is a float. Like we have different types of data items. It's a variable, right? Anything it could be. So it represents list of all data items, right? Definition of all data items, their types, and so many things, right? What is the purpose of all these data items, that is also being elaborated here, right? So what are things? It has list of all data items, the types of data items, the purpose of all these data items, and definition of all the composite data items in terms of their component data items, right? So four things, remember this properly: list, type, purpose and definition. Now there is one thing extra here, definition of all composite data items in terms of their component data items. So what does this mean? You know that, let's assume an example, we want to calculate gross pay of an employee in a payroll system. So what does this gross pay means? This gross pay is a composite data item because it constitutes a number of component data items, right? When you take the summation of these components, then it makes a gross pay, right? So we say this is the composite data items and it consists of regular pay and overtime pay, right? So this is what is meant by a data dictionary. It tells us the definition of this composite data item in terms of their component data items, right? Understood this is? So ultimately an expression is represented here, right? And in this expression we are going to calculate something and it constitutes a number of components. So it is going to elaborate what does this actually gross pay mean in the form of an expression, right? This is what is represented in the data dictionary. Now for the smallest unit of data item, the data dictionary simply lists their name and their type. Composite data items are expressed in terms of component data items using certain operators. So if it is a simple like you can say a data item, so just the name and the type is sufficient, it says, right? But if it is a composite data item like gross pay, so in that case you have to show what does it constitutes with the help of certain operators. Now this operators plays an important role in data dictionary. These operators are a part of standard terminology which has a meaning and that is universally accepted, right? So a person who is referring this data dictionary just to understand your diagram or your system, right, whether he belongs to India or any other person outside India, or maybe a person who belongs to like north, south, east, west, means different geographical location in India also, everyone has to follow this standard terminology only and it means the same. Multiple interpretations or ambiguities are not present in a data dictionary. Right, so it's like common to everyone. They will read what is there and it has the same meaning for everyone. Now, what is the benefit of using a data dictionary? So I've told you the first one, it provides us the standard terminology for all the relevant data for use by the developers working on a project. Right, so we have a standard terminology, so it cannot be misinterpreted. Actually, there will be no confusion caused. Then the data dictionary helps the developer to determine the definition of different data structures in terms of their component data items while implementing the design. So it provides the detailed description, definition, right? That means detailed description of all the data items that we are using. So ultimately it is, again the confusion is not there. What does it mean? The data dictionary also helps to perform impact analysis. That is, it is possible to determine the effect of some data on various processing activities and vice versa. Such impact analysis is specifically useful when one wants to check the impact of changing an input value type or a bug in some functionality. So ultimately, when it is going to list all the data items and everything, so if there is a change, minor change, so you need to check what is the impact of that or what is the effect of that, right? So here in this case, we perform impact analysis also by making simple variation and check what is the effect it is going to have on other parts of the system. So these are the major three benefits of a data dictionary. It provides a standard terminology, right? It provides the definition and impact analysis. Along with that, you will find in the later slides that it also has the capability of query handling. Say I want to look for something in data dictionary. I am not able to understand it. So do I need to go and refer line by line from the very first page, say 30 pages are there? No, right? It's just a wastage of time. Maybe the term that I want to search is in the 25th page. So why should I go and check page number 1 to 24? Just a wastage of time. Why not I directly go to the 25th page and refer it? So this is what a query facility is being provided, where you type in the keyword which you are looking for and it will directly take you to that particular page only. You don't have to search in irrelevant pages where that information is not present, right? So this is what the benefit of this. Now, what is a tool support? Tool support suggests that you don't have to prepare this data dictionary manually because it's very large and voluminous, right? Because since you're developing a large and a complex system, ultimately the data relevant to that system will also be very voluminous or very large, right? So if you go on preparing that with the hand, it will take years to complete that, right? So that is not practically possible. So what we do is we take the help of CASE tools, computer aided software engineering tools, right? The problem can be resolved with the help of this. What we do actually is, with the help of a tool, when we prepare the data flow diagram, this tool provides a support for generating this data dictionary automatically. You just have to click in on the button generate data dictionary and it is automatically generated. So the entire time, effort and cost will be saved if you are going to use this CASE tool, right? So we have a design tool, right? It's not that you have a separate tool for data dictionary. It's a design tool only. You prepare the design there and then you generate the data dictionary automatically. So as a result, the designers do not have to spend almost any effort in creating the data dictionary. These tools also support some query language facility to query about the definition and usage of data item. This is what I was talking about. For example, queries may be formulated to determine which data item affects which process, or a process affects which data item, or the definition and usage of specific data items. So query handling is facilitated by storing the data dictionary in a relational database management system. So ultimately RDBMS is there. That means the data dictionary is generated in the form of tables with the help of certain operators and you can file a query on that, right? Now, data definition. Now I've told you that we use certain operators which forms a standard terminology. So few of the you can say the operators that are being used here is, the first operator is this composition operator. The plus sign indicates composition of two data items. So A plus B means it represents data A and B. It is composed of A and B. It's not addition, remember, it's composition. It comprises of A and B data. Second one is a square bracket with comma. This represents selection. For example, if I write this at square bracket A comma B, it represents either A occurs or B occurs. Okay, so that is selection, either A or B. Then we have this as optional data. Whatever is written in this simple braces are considered to be optional data. So if I say, take an example, A plus, in brackets you have written B, right? Optional means either nothing is present or some instance of that data is present, right? So the answer could be, what does it mean? Either A or A plus B, right? If B is 0, that means it's simply A, right? And if B is present, then it will be A plus B. So either A or A plus B. Then is this braces, this shows iterative data which is getting repeated. So if any data is written in this bracket and say here the superscriptives as 5, so it says 5 instance of this name data. But if I write name and asterisk here, so it says represents 0 or more instance of name data. So asterisk represents 0 or more instance of this name data. Then the another one is an equivalence operator. So it's simple. If I say A equals to B plus C, means A is composite data item comprising of both B and C, right? So A constitutes or composed of B and C. So this is equivalence. Then this is a comment operator. Anything which is written in this comment is considered to be as description only. So these are the basic operators which are being used in the data dictionary, and entire information is represented according to this only. So this was all about your data dictionary. Now next analysis tool is a decision tree. So as the name suggests, it's a tree-like diagram. That is, it represents the graphically, it is going to represent your system, while with the help of this tree-like diagram we are in a position to take certain decisions. It is representing certain processing logic. So a decision tree gives a graphic view of the processing logic involved in decision making and the corresponding action taken. So it's not only the processing logic which is being represented here, what is the corresponding action that will be taken based on that logic, that is also represented in a decision tree. So it's a graphical technique representing the decision using a series of nodes and branches. So we know tree is represented with the help of these two constructs. We have branches and we have nodes. Now each node is a decision point where we have to make a choice, right? While each branch has a corresponding value to the decision choice, right? We'll see in the diagram. Now subsequent action is a result. So three things are there. One is a node that is going to represent the choices, branch which represents the decision choice, and the action taken as a result. Let's assume an example here. We are talking about a payroll system and we have three conditions here, right? If a person is salaried, first condition, and the second condition is or he works in a hourly basis, salaried or hours work. So if he is working on hourly basis, then we are talking about number of hours. If the number of hours are less than 40 or number of hours are greater than 40, and the fourth condition is if it is equal to 40, right? That is represented here. I have just written the main conditions, whether it's salaried or not, right? If yes, so what is the how you are going to calculate the salary? If he works on hourly basis, then how you are going to calculate the salary? So just see, we have numbered this as 1, 2 and 3, and here these nodes are represented with this. So what does this node represents? We have seen the choice that has to be made, this decision point actually, right? So first node, That means whether the person is salaried or not. If a person is salaried, that is yes. So the condition is written here, yes and no. So if the person is salaried, so outcome is this. The result is pay the basic salary to that person. But if the person is not salaried, that is no condition, right? So we'll check for the second condition here. The second decision point, number of hours worked, right, is less than 40. If this condition is true, that is yes, number of hours are less than 40, so the outcome is pay the hourly wages. Along with this, you have to prepare the absentee report. So when you have multiple conditions, you will put a colon here, right? In that case, so what will be done here? You will pay the hourly wages, calculation will be done, the salary is paid according to the number of hours worked and the days he is absent, that is also presented, right? If this is not the case, the number of hours is not less than 40, right? That means either it is greater than 40 or it is equal to 40. So the third condition is if it is greater than 40, yes. If the number of hours is greater than 40, pay the hourly wages, that is the basic pay you have to give. Along with this, give him the overtime pay also, because he is working more than 40 hours. So an overtime pay needs to be calculated and given along with the hourly wages. Else, that is no condition. He is not salaried, the number of hours is not less than 40, it's not greater than 40. So the last condition is it's equal to 40, so pay hourly wages. So this is what a decision tree is. It's not a simple tree, just you make the lines and you show the breakdown. That is a functional breakdown. Decision tree is something which is going to help you take a decision based on certain criteria which is represented here. So the decision choices are mentioned here. Then what is the possibility, yes or no condition, and what will be the final outcome that is represented here. Now for this same example, we'll be making a decision table also. If you're not able to understand it from here, the logic can be understood from the table, right? And then you again come back to this page, it will be clearly understood. It's so simple, it's nothing like tough that you're not able to understand this, right? So this was a decision tree. So what happens in a decision tree? The action is taken based on a particular condition, right? Choice. Now see what is decision table, and then we are going to compare both of them. What is the difference between the two? So what is a decision table? Simply a table which is going to help you make a certain decision. So what is a table? It's a matrix representation of the logic of a decision. So table will be having certain logical things which are being represented in that table, and it is in a matrix form, that is rows and columns. It specifies the possible conditions and the resulting actions. So two things are basically represented here, the conditions and the corresponding actions. So we'll have altogether 4 parts in this table: condition stub and corresponding entry, action stub and action entry, right? 4 parts. Along with that, certain rules will be there, right? But broadly we say it just have 3 parts: a condition part and an action part, which is further divided into condition stub and condition entry, action stub and action entry, and the rules. Now based on a set of conditions, different actions will be performed, right? 3 parts: condition stub lists the condition relevant to the decision, action stub actions that result from a given set of conditions, we'll explain it with a diagram, that will be better clear, and rules specify which actions are to be followed for a given set of conditions. Now see, first of all, the structure. The structure says it is divided into a matrix form, that is rows and columns, which has 4 major parts. The first part is a condition stub and condition entry in front of it. That means here the conditions are written and corresponding values will be entered here. Then action stub means what are the possible outcomes you will write, right? And in the action entry is what is the action you have taken based on these multiple conditions mentioned out here. right? So 4 things. Condition step, list all the conditions, they corresponding, like which one is applicable, all the values are given here. Action step, what will be the outcome, and actually what is the result obtained is given in action entry. And when you see these, rules are written here, that means particular combinations will be given here, right? And based on that certain action is taken, so that is known as a rule, right? So rule is specifies which actions are to be followed for a given set of conditions, right? If you are going to combine these two, what will be the outcome? If you combine these two, what will be the outcome? If you combine all the three, what will be the outcome? So ultimately these will be the rules which actually helps in testing part also, where we used to design test cases based on these decision rules, right? Now see the example, the same example that we have done for the decision tree, right? All the conditions, what were the conditions for calculating the salary? Whether the person is salaried or he works on hourly basis, that is an employee type, salaried or hourly worked, right? So this is one of the condition stub. Then second was, if he works on hourly basis, then multiple criteria were there, whether he works for greater than 40 hours, less than 40 hours, or equal to 40 hours. So these are the basic two conditions. First, it depends upon the employer type, and second, it depends upon the number of hours worked. So got this point? What does condition stub means? Where you write all the conditions with the help of which you are going to make certain decisions, whatever value they have, right? So now what are the rules? Rules are what will be the condition entries, right? Employer type is salaried, S, H for hourly worked, right? Now see, we have written this 6 times because we have to take multiple permutations and combinations of this, right? So number of hours worked had 3 criteria: greater than 40, less than 40, and equal to 40, right? So take the combinations. If a person is salaried and he works for less than 40 hours, if he is working on hourly wages, less than 40. So for both cases, for less than 40, salaried as well as hourly wages. Then if it is equal to 40, whether he is salaried or not. If it is greater than 40, whether he is salaried or not, right? So we have written all the possible entries of these two conditions, right? The possible value it could take. Now action stub is the possible outcomes. Either you are going to pay the basic salary, right? Or you calculate the hourly wages, you calculate the overtime also, and you have to produce the absentee report. This was the outcome mentioned in the decision tree, remember, right? That is why I took decision tree first, so that the problem is clear. So these are the possible outcomes, right? Now see, entries. The one which is applicable is represented with a cross. Cross doesn't mean that it is not applicable. Cross means it is included, or this is the final result, right? So see, the first combination is if a person is salaried. Now what was the condition given in the decision tree? Remember, if the person is salaried, you normally have to pay the basic pay directly. You don't have to calculate the hourly wages or overtime pay, right? You simply have to calculate or give basic salary. So in all the 3 cases, if a person is salaried, we are simply giving the basic pay. See, the cross is mentioned here. The person is salaried, pay the basic pay. If he is salaried, pay the basic pay. If he is salaried, pay the basic pay. Number of hours does not have any impact on the salaried employee, right? Number of hours is not any concern here, right? Simply is salaried, you have to directly give him the basic pay. That's it. But if the person works on hourly basis, right? H, 3 conditions are there. If the person is working for less than 40 hours, equal to 40 hours, or greater than 40 hours. So what will be the outcome? So if a person is working for less than 40, so what was the outcome there? You have to calculate the hourly wages and produce the absentee report. So two outcomes are there. You have to calculate the hourly wages also, and you have to produce the absentee report also. See, if the person is working for less than 40 hours, second condition, you have to pay hourly wages and you have to produce the absentee report. So this is how it is represented with the help of a table now. So you are referring this outcome will be calculated based on the rule. See, the rule says hourly wages less than 40, outcome will be hourly wages and absentee report, right? Then if he works on hourly basis and it is equal to 40, directly calculate the hourly wages and give, right? The last condition, if he works for equal to 40 hours, pay him the hourly wage simply, right? Now if it is greater than 40, calculate the hourly wages and calculate the overtime also. You have to give both hourly wages as well as the overtime pay. So what do you think is the difference between a decision tree and a table? In a decision tree, only one particular condition was there, and based on that you were calculating it, right? Decision point was one, yes and no condition, right? While in this case, multiple inputs, right, which are used to make a particular decision, and you have multiple outcomes, then we use this table, right? See, multiple inputs, that means these two criteria, these two criteria, these two criteria, and they have different combinations, right? And the outcomes are also multiple. It may be single also, but it may be multiple outcomes also, right? So this is how a table assists you in making a complex decision when you have multiple conditions and multiple outcomes possible. This is a simple example where both of these are simple representation. Even tree can be used, even a table could be used, right? But for a large and a complex problem where multiple combinations of inputs are possible, and based on that you are supposed to calculate a particular result, then the table is a better option. Now how to constructing a decision tree. Name the conditions and values each condition can assume. Name all possible actions that can occur. List all possible rules, that is combinations. Define the action for each rule, that is the last part, entries, and simplify the decision table, right? Till this point we have done. Define the action and then we were able to identify the result. Now what is the simplify the decision table? Now see, though it seems to be simple for this example, but unnecessary we have represented this S 3 times here, because it does not have any impact on the number of hours. If he is salaried, directly you have to pay basic salary to each one of them, right? Number of hours hardly matter. So we can reduce the size of this table. How? By simplifying this decision table. How it can be simplified? I took first rule as salaried, right? And since salary does not have any impact on the number of hours, I left it blank, because you have to simply give the basic pay. Either leave this blank or we represent with the I, capital I. Capital I means don't care condition. Don't care condition means it does not have any impact. Number of hours will not have any impact on the calculation of the salary. So either leave it blank or write it as I represents a don't care condition, and simply you will be paying a basic salary, right? So all the three conditions are represented just using one single column here, and which was taking three different columns unnecessary or increasing the size, right? Rest, since number of hours has an impact, right? So we have taken three different criteria or three different rules for that. Number of hours less than 40, equal to 40 and greater than 40. Less than 40 to calculate hourly wage and absentee report. Equal to 40 means hourly wages, and greater than 40 means calculate hourly wages as well as the overtime, right? So this is a simplified data decision table. So hope this is clear now, right? It's a simple example. We have lot many examples for this. This was the simplest one to explain the concept properly. Now the difference between decision table versus decision tree. The first parameter is readability, right? Decision trees are easier to read and understand when the number of conditions are small. If it is more, then it becomes like confusion is created in the tree. On the other hand, a decision table causes the analyst to look at every possible combination of conditions which he might otherwise omit. Right? If it is a tree and there are multiple conditions, so lot many branches and confusion, maybe you skip one or the other criteria. But in case of a table, it is systematically represented, everything is written there, all possible combinations and their corresponding actions are given. So that is a better one for a large and a complex system. Then explicit representation of the order of decision making. In contrast to the decision trees, the order of decision making is abstracted out in decision table. A situation where decision tree is more useful is when multi-level decision making is required, right? Multiple levels. Decision trees can more intuitively represent multiple level decision making hierarchy, whereas decision tree can only represent a single decision to select the appropriate action for execution, right? So what does this says? Explicit representation of order of decision making, that trees are more useful when you have hierarchy or multiple levels of decision that you need make one after the other, right? But this is not possible in a table because it represents the entire set of combination, everything at one place. Hierarchy or the levels are not, multi-level decision cannot be made using a table. Then third one is representing complex decision logic. Decision trees become very complex to understand when the number of conditions and action increases, right? It may even be difficult to draw the tree on a single page. When very large number of decisions are involved, the decision table representation may be preferred. So if it has a large and a complex system and multiple conditions, I have told you the table is a better option. If it is small, you can go for a tree also. It's not that you cannot use one or the other, right? It depends upon the criteria, right? So this was all about your analysis tool. So we have done data flow diagram, decision tree, decision table and data dictionary. Structure chart, we have done it, but it's not an analysis tool. I have shown you the background. Structure chart belongs to structured designing, right? But yes, data flow diagram is converted into the structure chart. That is why we have done structure chart here. Else we have to do it further in the next lecture, and again we have to refer the DFD because both are linked with each other. So go through this properly, and if you have any doubt, ask in the discussion class. This was all about your midterm syllabus, right? Thank you all.